Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with Clara Rose. And as you can see today, I have a guest right here in the studio with me, but not just a guest, the actual executive producer of my show. This is the one and only John Gaston. Welcome to my show in your studio.
The crowd goes wild.
The crowd goes wild. That's
it's
right.
It's a whisper. It's a small whisper. Well, thank you for doing a show with us.
It is my pleasure.
Because you have been with us for a long time.
Yes. I have been around a while. Yes. In the show world
Let's
here.
see. Let's visit. That's when you was Savvy Author.
Mm-hmm.
We had Savvy Flipper.
Yep.
Influence
Matters. Yep. A couple
and
years.
now Coffee with Class.
Coffee with
Clara.
Class. That's right.
Hey, Class. You got class. You got lots of
Coffee
class.
with Clara Rose. Yeah, but before that, remember I did the chamber show when I was the CEO of the Christian Chamber of Commerce.
That's right.
For a year.
Wow.
I did the show.
You have been with us for a
I
very
know.
long, which is awesome.
That was like 2017, I think.
Something like that.
When I was with the
Long
chamber.
time ago. I'm just
I know,
saying.
I've been around.
This is why the beard gets longer and longer, and the more I do, it just gets.
You're just getting old there, mister.
I know, it's my aging stick. I don't know. It's good. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, because you've been around, and and again, it's kind of funny. I learned by osmosis, right? By people watching people, listening to people, and my brain. Amazon. I mean, strictly Amazon, not the other, but Amazon. That's really changed the whole world of getting books done and published and.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it actually really changed significantly. Back in the day, it wasn't even KDP. It wasn't Kindle Direct Publishing.
Right.
It was Create Space.
Yeah,
it was called Create Space. So back in the day, if you wanted to be a self-published author, those were your choices. You could either find yourself an agent and get yourself a book deal contract, or you could self-publish. And the most popular way was with Create Space. And that's actually where I started years ago, helping people to publish in a hybrid publishing model that I created, but using that as a tool.
But what's your why?
What's my why?
What's your why? Why did you do that?
So I did that because my clients found traction. They could organically generate leads for their businesses, right? Mm-hmm. If they had a book, right? Okay. But the truth for most people was that they would try to find an agent because publishing houses won't take you without an agent.
Right.
So they couldn't find an agent that would take them on. If you're a first-time author, lots of times they won't touch you with a 10-foot pole, right? They're not interested in you. If you do a genre that isn't a really super popular genre, really hard to find an agent.
Right.
And that was just step one, right? So step one is find your agent. And then your agent finds the publisher and gets the deal for you.
Okay.
And for their efforts, they get a piece of your pie.
Right.
Right? So the publishing house takes the first piece of your pie, and then your agent takes the next piece of your pie, and then you, the author, get a royalty. Sometimes a very small royalty.
You get a little sliver of pie.
Little sliver of the pie.
That's horrible.
But that's the way the publishing world has always been.
Right.
And so that was just status quo.
Right.
And then along came a tool that allowed you to publish outside of that system.
Right.
So the self-publishing world was kind of born. And there are a lot of them now, a lot of tools out there. But what Amazon did was Amazon gave you a place to sell them and a place to create them all in one.
Okay.
Right? So they pulled the two together, and it's not just about books, right? Because there are other places you could go online and buy books, right? But you could go to Amazon and buy your toilet paper, right?
True.
Oh, come on, honestly.
No, yeah,
you can
absolutely.
you could auto ship the stuff,
Yep.
right? You can buy anything on Amazon. So whilst you're there, oh yeah, there's a book that I've been meaning to get, right? You're just going to throw it in the cart with other things. So they made it so easy for the consumer to buy your book, and then they made it so easy for the author to get their book on there.
Right.
Now, one of the results of that was a whole bunch of really crappy books.
Yeah, I was going to say,
really bad stuff out there.
Right.
right? Because anyone can do it.
And
right?
and unfortunately, when people come to me now, I'm so tainted, and I shouldn't be this way, but I am. Well, I have a book. Well, you and 10 billion. Good for you.
Yeah.
What, that doesn't mean anything anymore. Used to, when you were an author,
oh yeah,
you were a thing.
Yeah.
You were someone that really was a thing.
Yep.
Now it's like, good for you.
Everyone
That's like
has
someone coming to me going, I got a podcast. Yeah, you and 10 billion other people.
Right.
Good for you.
Right.
You got a podcast.
That's right.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Jump up and down? No.
So the meaning has changed, right?
It has.
Because you used to have your agent, and then they got you a book deal,
Yes.
and people got paid advances
Right.
against the sale of their book, and it was a different. They sent you out on a book tour, and it was a different.
Oh
world.
yeah, you traveled. I forgot about book
Yeah,
tours. You traveled the
yeah.
country signing stuff.
Yeah,
and
it was a big deal.
being the person and reading some of your,
Yeah.
and to a crowd. Now, if you do that, you're like, well, there's two people. Hey, over in the back, come over. and
Yeah, it was a different time.
Right.
It meant something different, and very few people got it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So now anybody can publish a book.
Mm-hmm.
Now that isn't to say that anybody can publish a quality book.
That's
Right?
Okay, so
'Cause there's
that's
a
where
difference.
that's where I was
Yeah.
going to go. So when
Yeah.
I'm gonna back up for a second. Everybody comes
Okay.
to me and goes, "Well, I got a podcast. Really? How you doing that? You sitting in your bedroom in your underwear,
Closet on the
Yeah,
floor.
on the floor, you read
Right?
it, and then you
Yes,
go, I got a
that's what they're
podcast."
doing.
Or are you going and going with somebody that has been proven in their work record, right?
Right.
Knows the system, knows how to do it correctly. So yeah, you're having to pay somebody, but
Mm-hmm.
you're getting quality over, well, I just got a podcast.
Right. Well, and that's it. Right?
Right.
That's it. You are paying a professional to make you sound good. Right? Anybody can sit in the bedroom, in the closet, on the floor,
Yep.
and record a podcast. As a matter of fact, somebody invited me once to be on a podcast, came to my office, sat on the floor, we recorded it, and it's like, okay, well, we'll probably load it in a few weeks. I'm like,
Yeah. Awesome.
right? I felt totally cheated.
Right.
right?
Right.
Like there's a reason why I pay to come to a studio where
Right.
professionals make me look good and sound good, and I mean they manage all those pieces because they're the professional, and I pay someone to do what I myself can't professionally do.
And then that's what that is what you are for when it
That
comes
is
to
what I'm
writing
for.
books.
Yes. I'm the professional that you can pay to have it done right. So anybody can throw together a book. And I promise you, when somebody hands me their book, the very first thing that I do is I open it and look at their formatting.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I can tell at a glance if they did this puppy themselves.
Right.
At a glance.
Right.
Right. And then if it looks like they did it themselves, this is harsh, but I immediately dismiss their credibility.
Right.
I don't mean to necessarily. It's
Right.
just
You're like me, a little tainted.
I'm a little tainted by it because I'm like, okay. And then I'm apt to not even read the book, honestly, right? Because I feel like, all right, has this been edited, right? And I have read a few books where I thought I wouldn't put my name on that. I would be embarrassed
Right.
by that.
So I mean, just like in our world, there are so many moving parts, right? And in your world, because I've worked with other people like yourself, and I start listening to them talk, and I'm like, oh my God, I would never attempt to write a book on my own, ever.
Right.
Ever. I'm a smart guy. I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I get it. But I'm like, no, because I've listened to you talk about the structure of doing the book, and you about a third of the way in, I'm like, yeah, no, that's never going to happen. Me, I'd be like, here's a recording. Let's go get it transcribed. And there you go.
There's your book.
book. Good luck with it. If you can read it, you're a smarter person than I am. I'm just saying.
Well, and because there isn't a lot of people out there in the world teaching how to write a good book. I mean, I should take that back. Now, every other person on social media is going to help you write and publish your
Right.
book, right?
Right.
I'm
That's what I do. I'm an Arthur guy.
right? Inundated with ads for, I'm going to help you write and publish your book.
Right.
But the truth is, if somebody hasn't done it for years and isn't an editor,
Right.
hasn't done formatting, they are not the person to help you turn out a quality book.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
That's just the truth.
I mean, I look at your book right here, this one. And I'm going, so it's all nice. It's easy on the eyes.
Yes.
See, that's my brain. It's got to be, I don't read a lot, I'm dyslexic, and I don't mean I see things backwards. It's how my brain interprets. This is an easier format. There's some I get in there and I'm like, ooh, I get a headache just opening it up. I'm like, yeah, that's a migraine already coming, and I don't know how to handle this. And so I'm like, you got this on tape?
Right.
Or is it on a podcast so I can go listen to it? Right. Because it is. I mean, down to the indentations and the putting it on the page. And I've literally saw a book the other day where it went to the bottom of the page and it hyphened and continued over here. I'm like, what the hell is that? Why would you do that?
Yeah, that is a formatting faux pas. Or when the entire page is one paragraph, you're like,
whoa, that's the biggest run-on
that's
sentence.
That's a big old paragraph right there.
Good Lord.
And that's like at the back end. That's like the end result of it being poorly formatted.
Right.
Poorly formatted.
Yeah, I got where you're going.
Blah, 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 blah. But it starts way before that, right? You better have created for yourself a solid foundation for even writing the book.
Right.
Right? You want to know where you're going with the book before you start writing, right? So that as you write, you're not all over the map, because that is a hard book to read.
All over the map.
Sometimes you're like,
it's like they jump all. I'm like,
yeah, because that's the way our brains work, right? You have a thought and you're like, oh, I have to tell them this, and then, oh, I forgot to tell them that. Right? That we're all human that way.
Yep.
Like, oh, I don't want to forget to say this. But in the greater scheme of things in their mind, they don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Nope.
Right?
Makes sense to you.
Of course it does.
It's you.
It's your brain.
Right. Like so a while back, I was going to do a book and you were going to ghostwrite it with me. And I got into it and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is just a jumbled up bunch of mess. No one's going to get it because it makes sense in my head. But once we started putting it on paper, I'm like, okay, it doesn't make sense. Because it does, the math don't work. It doesn't work, right? And you have to, and I'm like, oh, never mind.
Never mind, forget it.
I'll make a movie instead.
Right. So many people go at it in that way, right? I need a book to, because I'm a speaker or I'm a whatever. I need a book, so I'm going to write a book.
We need one.
We are told we need one. You want to, and because a book is a great tool to generate leads in your business.
Right.
Right. So there's truth in that. So I'm not saying that that's not true.
Correct.
What I'm saying is you need the right book, the right tool. So one of the things that in the very beginning stages, I ask all of my new authors, what do you want to do with this tool we're about to create? Had that conversation this morning with a lady. What do you want to do with this tool? Because she was asking questions like, should I do this? Should I do? I don't know. What do you want to do with this tool?
Right.
We're creating a tool that does something. And I used my latest book as an example. So 8 ways to mind your own business, strategy and mindset for the new entrepreneur. This was created for people entering into entrepreneurship for the very first time.
Right.
They're clueless. They need the basics, right?
A guideline.
They need some direction. They need strategy and mindset for that new entrepreneur. So we created a book very specifically that in very layman, almost childlike terms, we tell them how to start a business. Right? And that was very intentional at the creation of this book. I actually co-wrote it with a lady in the UK, Debbie. She does wonderful mindset work. And together we created an idea, an outline, if you will, of what the book should be before we wrote a single word. Then it's just about taking one chapter at a time and giving them what you said you were going to give them, right? Now, if you don't have a process in place to make that happen, then you're rambling.
Yeah.
And the book that comes out will be rambled up.
That's what, and I'm afraid that's what I would do. Even with you,
wonderful.
Even with you, you'd be like, by the time I'm afraid what's going to happen is you'll need therapy. By the time it's all over, going, I'll never do that again.
I can't work with them.
I don't know why I did it in the first place. I have got to be not right. That's what I worry about.
Which is silly because I have a system that I created. The Brainstorming Blueprint is a process that I created specifically to make that happen, right? To seamlessly, flawlessly make that happen.
Right.
And if somebody doesn't have a way for you to get that foundation right, you're doomed from the get-go.
Well, maybe I'll rethink it.
All right, you rethink it.
I'll rethink it because it's I do want to do one. I think everybody thinks
There's
they
value.
have everybody has an interesting life, but I was just talking to you before the show started. There's things that I just don't talk about because I never wanted to blow smoke up my own rear end.
Right? Or brag. I get that.
I don't want to brag because I've always been told you don't brag.
Right.
Let your work stand out.
Right.
And if people don't see your worth, but in today's world, and my wife and I were having this conversation, in today's society, you have to do your own bragging.
Yeah.
Because, and you don't want to. I don't want to. That's not what I want to do. But to get to the new generation, you have to wow them.
Well, and you have to show them you're different.
Right.
Right? Because there's
I'm
20
different.
other...
You work with me.
Not that kind of different.
Oh, okay.
that you're different in a good way.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Specifically, like, I have a process that I created to help people do this. So when you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, wherever, and you see person after person after person saying, I can help you, write your book in 30 days. And I'm saying, I'm calling BS on that one right there.
Yeah, run.
Right?
Run from
away
that dude. That
person,
dude cannot do that.
Right? Or 90 days to, your book, or 7 days to writing a book, or, I'm going to help you crack the code to writing and publishing your book. I'm like,
No,
okay, all of those people are selling you something, right?
Bullshit.
Yeah, they are not going.
I know you won't, but I will. It's all crap.
That is not going to give you the quality tool that you really want. If you really want to create a tool that does something for your business, ministry, cause, or brand, you want a good quality tool that you're not going to be ashamed of or embarrassed by, and that actually does what you want it to do. If it's for entrepreneurs who are starting a business, they need to get the promise. Strategy and mindset for the new entrepreneur. There's a promise in that title. There's a promise in that. And in the book, we keep that promise.
Right.
And that is a good tool.
Right.
If that's not what you end up with out of your book, you've been ripped off, my friend.
So I'm going to ask, we didn't talk about this yet, and I didn't mention it to you, and I should have, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway.
Okay.
So what do you think about the new Chat GPT with people? You think that's going to hurt people or harm, or it's going to be good for people?
The new
Chat GPT, where you put in you put in reference words, and it'll literally write stuff for you.
The artificial intelligence thing
AI.
going on. Okay, so one thing that it can't do, that right off the top of my head, I recognize it can't do, is it can't capture your voice. Right? So when people talk, when people write, we use certain words, certain terms. And actually last week on the show, I talked about the importance of building a bank of power words and power phrases that you use in your marketing. So when people hear it or see it, they recognize it as you, right? So I always use the word strategic and intentional and savvy. I mean, those are part of my branding, right? So if an artificial intelligence, whatever, is going to write something for me, it's not going to use my verbiage, right? I can put in keywords what I'm talking about, but if I don't include those, I'm not careful to include those marketing words, they're not going to be in it.
Right.
And then whatever it creates, it's not going to sound like Clara. Right?
You're right.
It's not. So one of the things that I love about ghostwriting, which I don't do a ton of it anymore, but when somebody reads a ghostwritten book, so I write it for somebody, like if I was going to ghostwrite for you, that means you spoke the stuff to me. I actually wrote it to sound like you, right? And then we put your name on it. That's ghostwriting. One of the things that I love is when I ghostwrite a book, and somebody says to the author, oh my gosh, it was like we were sitting across the table having a conversation.
Right.
That is a well ghostwritten book, right? Because it sounds like you, the author.
Right.
When you read this book, if you know me and you read this book, my portion of this book, you know that Clara wrote that.
I can hear Clara's voice.
Yeah, it sounds like me. It's my verbiage, my personal prose, the things that you would expect Clara to say. You hear that in my writing.
Wow.
And that you cannot get that from AI. I don't believe it.
And I'm not, I started thinking about it because the Tech Shamans today, we actually talked about how the Chat GPT is actually disrupting everything.
Oh, interesting.
schools, and I mean, kids in school, they're trying to use it for papers and stuff like that.
So we don't have to do the work ourselves.
Right? Who owns copyright when you do it? That kind of stuff when you use it. So yeah, you're right. So it can write you grammatically, and
correct,
and it can be done, but it's not your voice.
Yeah. It's not going to sound like you.
And when you want someone reading your book, you want them to hear your voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you're writing fiction, maybe that's different, right? Because then but I don't do much of that. I mostly focus on, nonfiction, some poetry, some of those kinds of things. But I want
Morgan
authors...
Freeman. If I'm going to nonfiction, I want Morgan Freeman's voice in your head.
Go.
And so
I'll
it
work
was.
on that. Right. But in general, we're writing books that are tools.
Right.
Right. And we want that tool to sound like the person. If you're standing on stage and you're peddling your book, that book better sound like you when they open it up and read it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and see, that makes sense. I didn't think of that part of the GPT stuff as, it doesn't have your voice.
Yeah. There's no way for it to.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay.
Interesting. And I hadn't really thought or talked much about that either. I hear people saying, oh, I'm using it for generating copy for my website or copy for my emails or whatever.
We use it in-house when we don't get really good synopsises from our shows.
Okay.
Because sometimes we get 3 lines, and I'm like, no, a synopsis needs to be a little nice little fat, just juicy.
Should say what the show's going to be about for the day.
Right, and I don't. So Rob, and Rob's like, dude, look what I did for one of our shows. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the best synopsis ever. And he goes, yeah, that was GPT. I'm like, well, there you go.
So that application, there's probably nothing wrong with that.
Perfect, right.
Right? Unless that synopsis, you want it to sound like the person who's doing the show. Which I don't know that you care as much.
No.
It's really just a marketing tool, right?
So when we put it up, like especially when we put it, because when we schedule our shows, like your show, we schedule it to fire at the same time on Facebook and YouTube and the whole 9 yards. Well, on there, you need beef. Sustenance, meat.
Yeah.
And it needs to have something that the algorithms can just, oh my God, this is going to be good, and we want to throw that out there, and we don't get that with 3 lines, ever. I don't care how I don't care how spot on those 3 lines are. It's never enough.
Yeah.
Because you're competing against billions, not millions, billions of other people that are throwing content up on all the social media and on the web platform. So you've got to get above the fray.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to do that is give it sustenance, because without it didn't do you any good.
Interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. Yeah. I'll have to beef mine up a little bit for you.
Okay, so I have to say, Clara Rose does not have to do that for us. So my question to you is, now that we talked about, why did we change the name to Coffee with Clara Rose?
Well, a couple of reasons, right? So I still really do talk about influence, right? Because I just believe in the power of influence, right? So I talk about how writing is a way that we build influence, right? For a couple of years, I talked really heavily about that.
Yes.
And then I just really started focusing in on the book piece of it, right? Being a savvy author, right? And the value and the importance of being a savvy author. So I talked about that for an entire year. And then it struck me that I really want the flexibility in my show to talk about whatever I want to talk about.
Like today, we're talking about this.
Right? And that doesn't totally fit the savvy author so much. I want to be able to talk about influence, right? I did the Savvy Flipper show for a while, and we definitely, we do some investing, and so there is that part of us. I didn't want to exclude those things, right? If I wanted to show up and talk about something else, I wanted the freedom to do that.
Exactly.
But I also want to bring in other people to talk with them, because I think people are interested, my viewers are interested in what other people are doing. So if I can find a business owner, an entrepreneur, a professional who's doing something cool, I want the flexibility to bring them on the show and say, tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, what is working for you and what's not working for you?
Yeah. Do you have a book? Are you using your book? Is it a good tool for you? Are you using other kinds of writing? Are you doing articles? Are you doing a show? Are you doing a podcast? Right? What are you doing?
Good for you. Right. No, I know. But you're right. I mean, I think it's, that's a great concept. I mean, it's really, really good. And sometimes it's not about books at all. It's just about
Right.
what they're doing. And, it's giving a little bit of love to the entrepreneurs, which they don't get a lot of.
Right.
They get made fun of or they
Right.
get beat down, but they don't get that kudos. I mean, I don't care if it's just a little bit of movement. A little
Yeah.
bit of movement can be massive.
Well, yeah. Now you all of a sudden, if you can go on someone's show and talk about what you do, now all of a sudden you have a little piece of video, right? Maybe you're not in a position where you can have your own show. If you are, I know where you can find a great
Bob's
down-
filming. He does them really good. Really cheap.
right? Professionally done video can be really valuable in moving the needle in your business.
Right.
And if you're not wanting to do your own show, or maybe you're not in a space to do your
on
own
your
show,
show.
be on my show. Now all of a sudden you've got a clip of video about what you do. That's
Right.
gold.
Yes, it is.
Right there, right? Send people, put it on your Facebook page,
Your
put it on your
website.
website. Now you've got another piece of marketing that you can use that has not cost you anything but your time to come share your knowledge with us on the Coffee with Clara Rose show.
There you go.
Right? So it was a strategic move for me for sure.
That's smart.
To make it more user-friendly for Clara, but also that I can bring on anybody I want and talk about anything that I want.
There you go. Except for politics. You won't
Except
do-
for, yes,
she
we
doesn't do
don't talk politics.
That's me. That's me. Yeah.
We're probably not going to talk religion. Sometimes I'll throw a little
see.
Jesus in there, but
Jesus will help
it's
you.
because I can, because it's my show.
That's right. There you go.
Coffee with Clara Rose. Clara Rose can talk about whatever she wants.
Well, thanks for letting me on today.
Thank you for being on the show. This was great fun. Plus, it's great for people who watch me to see the behind the scenes. As the executive producer, you are one of the people that make this happen.
And,
Nice.
and then Rob back there in the back.
And Rob in the back. Hey, Rob.
he keeps
never gets any
all
love.
the technical stuff.
Makes it all really happen.
It's really nice to have somebody with another brain.
Yes, yes.
So anyway.
All right, we are out of time, guys, but thank you for showing up once again. I can't wait to see you next week on Coffee with Clara Rose.